creator, Lord Brahmaji. And the student is a Rig Veda Acharya, highly accomplished. He comes prepared in the right manner, approaches the Guru and says, this is what I want to learn. I want to learn Brahma Vidya, because the student knows that Brahma Vidya is the only way to get moksha. And moksha is possible only through Shastras, and Shastras are meaningful only in the presence of the Guru. To make the best use of a study of the Upanishad, we have to do a lot of visualization or imagination. I want you to imagine, like when we study the Bhagavad Gita, the visualization is all of us are Arjuna and the teacher is Sri Krishna. Make a visualization, I am in the presence of Sakshat Brahmaji himself. And imagine the august presence of a Devata, that glittering light, and you are sitting there. How will you sit? You will sit with all reverence, all attention. And in that phase, this is what I call an open eye meditation. In an open eye meditation, I'm absolutely aware, I'm extremely sensitive to everything that is happening. I'm very acutely aware of my body position. I'm very reverentially placed in front of a great Acharya. And I have posed my question. And the question is this: I want to learn Brahma Vidya. And I know, being a student of Brahma Vidya, that this Brahma Vidya is Varishtam. This is the highest choice anybody could have. This is something sought out by all wise people. It is a great secret because it is not available for everyone, and it is something that we need. It's a little tricky. We need to be able to use our brain to discover, because even if it is given to you, it's like a code. We need to be able to decode it. The other great thing about Brahma Vidya is it destroys all my papas, all my punyas also. Over so many years, I have accumulated a large baggage of punya and papa. As in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse which says, Jnanagni sarva karmani basmasat kurute tata. All my punyas and papas can be burnt through the fire of self-knowledge. And through this, I am able to attain to the highest. Now, this is what we have requested. And now you are in the presence of the teacher. Be very sensitive to what the teacher will say. So the teacher will say, yes, are you ready to learn? If you are ready to learn, he gives you 3 magic words: Shraddha, Bhakti, Dhyana. Shraddha, these are the opening words of the creator, the teacher. He says, listen with Shraddha, Bhakti, and Dhyana. Commentators who have studied said Shraddha means Shravanam. Listen with all openness, with reverence, with trust, with Shraddha in your heart. Bhakti here means Mananam. Dhyana means Nidityasanam. All the words of the teachers should be meditated upon. Only when they are meditated upon, they bring a lot of meaning to you. So you dwell on the teaching again and again, and not just forget it after today's class. The teacher begins with a certain caution. 90% of our waking hours are spent on what? On karma. We are involved in some activity or the other. Or prajaya, taking care of your children. For some people, it may be grandchildren. Dhanena, if you have accumulated a lot of wealth, then we spend a lot of time protecting our wealth. And he says, none of these are going to give you what you are looking for. Then what is that qualification? He says, Tyagena. Tyagena means among the 4-fold qualifications, Viveka, Vairagya, Shama, Adi, Shakta, Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam, there is one quality called Vairagya. Vairagya means I have possessed so many things. I have so many possessions. I have so many people important in my life. I know all these have been given to me by the Lord, and I'm a custodian of all these for the time being, as long as he gives it to me. The moment he says, give it back, I should be willingly ready. I am not possessive of any of my possessions, including my own body, my own well-being. If I am able to develop this quality of Tyaga, which is called Vairagya, then you have all the riches in the world. He says, Parena Nakam, I will give you something beyond the heavens. That treasure which is beyond the heavens, which will give you immortality, is not somewhere far away. It is there within the cave of your heart. That shining consciousness which is there within your heart. Can I give you a small homework? as homework that you can do. This particular verse, and I will request my team to text this verse for you. I want you to chant this verse 10 times before you go to bed. This is the most delightful message that Lord Brahmaji has given us. Meditate on this verse. Initially, just learn to chant these words mechanically. The words go like this: Vedanta Vijnana Sunishtithartha Sannyasa Yogad Yata Shuddha Sattvaha Te Brahma Lokeshu Paranta Kale Paramrita Paramuchanti Sarve. What does it mean? I've given you a picture of Akhandanandaji Maharaj. And I also told you the story that a certain Avadut Maharaj met him. And Avadut does not have even clothes on his body. That Avadut blessed him by saying this: from today onwards, remember, you are Sakshat Narayana himself. This is a Mahavakya. And Swamiji related, he says, from that moment, I never forgot. There was a great there's a great enlightened master in Bombay in recent times. His name is Nisargadatta Maharaj. He was a petty shopkeeper. And one day his friend tells him there is a pravachan going on, shall we go? So he wound up his shop and went there. And there the teacher was giving a Mahavakya that you are Brahman. He had a chance only once to listen to him. But then he reasoned, why should the teacher tell a lie? From that moment, he was transformed. Nisargadatta Maharaj, so many Western authors would visit him in a small, sort of a slum place in Mumbai. He never moved from that place. And all he spoke was words of wisdom, words of a realized master. All he did was one, listening to the teacher who said, Vedanta Vijnana Sunishtithartha. The Vedantic wisdom should be so clearly understood in your heart. And what is the wisdom? I am already that which I can possibly be. And how do you attain that? Sannyasa yoga. Sannyasa yoga here means through, I've already told you, through a mental form of renunciation. You don't have to renunciate physically, but be a mental renunciate. Another word there is yatayaha. Yatayaha means put your effort in the correct direction. A sannyasi is also called a yatayaha. Correct direction means focus initially on karma yoga, upasana yoga. When you do karma yoga for a certain period of time, your mind develops a certain jnana yogyata. And then when the teacher says you are that, the message touches you very deeply. And then the teacher says, if you have understood Vedanta Vijnana Sunishtithartha, you go to Brahma Loka. That means the highest thing that is possible. It is only symbolic. Paranta Kale, for such a person who's got Vedantic wisdom, there is, normally for all of us, there is Anta Kale, when the body drops. For such a person, it is called Paranta Kala. There is no more coming back to this relative word. And such a person attains to the highest. So remember this word 10 times before you sleep in a meditative way, and at the meaning also I have told you. Once the teacher has given the wisdom, now that you are sitting in front of Brahmaji, he makes you meditate. And how do you meditate? Meditation is possible at 3 levels. One is called Eka Rupa Ishvara Dhyana. I visualize Shiva and Parvati initially as outside, then I visualize them as within me. And then I visualize this whole world as an extension of Vishwa Rupa Ishvara Darshana. And finally, when the wisdom comes more, that I visualize myself as Brahman without any form, which is all pervading. So these are various steps of meditation. As I said, this Upanishad gives you, like the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, how you need to sit in a proper meditative place, how you need to bring your guru into mind, how you need to bring in bhakti, and then focus on the heart center, on the lotus. Imagine Shiva there. And these are all the verses that we studied last time. We will continue the one more step of meditation here. Here Brahmaji has a liberty to teach. So we are going from Arupa to Vishwarupa to Ekarupa. To explain today's verse, this will be the 7th verse, it will be Apeksha. Apeksha is an ardent student of Vedanta, but with a lot of other accomplishments too. She has done a master's in sports management in the University of Washington. An entrepreneur, very successful, and she has started her own site called Zaikaka Tadka, which is a site for amateur people to put up their recipes with more than 5 lakh followers in 145 countries. Apeksha, can you please explain this verse to us?
Hari Om, sir. Uma Sahayam Parameshwaram Prabhum Trilochanam Nilkantham Prashantam Dhyatvaha Munir Gachati Bhuta Yonim Samas Sakshim Tamasaha Parstat. In this verse, essentially, it is told, how do you attain Shiva? The answer in one line is, having meditated on Shiva, the meditator becomes one with Shiva. Now, Shiva here is described in three forms. Like sir mentioned earlier, Ishta Devta or Ekarupaha Ishvara, Vishwarupaha Shiva, and the third form is Nirguna Rupaha or Arupaha Shiva. The goal of any meditator or any jiva is to graduate slowly from Ekarupa to Vishwarupaha to Arupaha Shiva. But it is very, very difficult for anyone to accept the Vishwarupa or Arupa form. Even for Arjuna, it was very difficult to see the Vishwarupa form of Lord Krishna. That's why he begged him to return to his Ekarupaha pleasant form. So this shloka talks about the Ekarupa Ishvara Dhyanam. And till that time we reach the Vishwarupa, let's see what is this Ekarupa Shiva. Uma Sahayam, Shiva, who is the husband of Uma. Parameshwaram, Shiva, who is the greatest lord of the universe. Prabhum, Shiva, who is the controller of this universe. Trilochanam, the Shiva with the three eyes. The three eyes here denotes Surya, Chandra and Agni. But if it is very difficult to visualize Shiva in this form, it is said that you can just think of Shiva with the third vertical eye. All these are symbols that are to be meditated upon. Nilkantham, Shiva, the one who is blue-necked. It is said Shiva swallowed the poison to save the world. But here, the Vishwarupa form of Shiva is also described. The blue sky that we see is termed as the blue neck of Shiva, with his feet being the Bhuloka or the lower lokas that we reside on. Then Prashantam, extremely tranquil, always meditating. Shiva is supposed to be meditating on the cremation grounds. That denotes that there is absence of fear of death. There is no fear at all of death. That is the symbol we need to meditate upon. Bhuta Yonim, Shiva, who is the cause of this universe. Samasta Sakshim, Shiva, the one who is witness of everything. Tamas Parstahat. Now here, Shiva is described as one which is beyond Maya. Now this is the Arupa or the Nirguna Rupa of Shiva that is described here. That is why they say that for attaining moksha, you don't have to leave your body or leave this world. You can attain moksha here itself. It's like a movie screen where the movie screen is not at all affected by the movie or the events that are happening on it. Similarly, Shiva is unaffected, untouched by the Maya. And we have to think of I as the Shiva, the Brahman, who are unaffected by whatever events that are happening outside. Because I am the screen and the turbulence that is happening outside is the movie. And movie turbulence cannot disturb the consciousness screen within me. So Shiva has been described here in three forms, like I said, Ishtadevta, Vishwarupa, and Atmarupa Ishvara. Now, very important word comes Dhyatvaha. Meditate, it says meditate on any of these three rupas, whichever you are comfortable upon, but just meditate. This is the most sincerest advice that has been given here. Just meditate. Don't say that I'll meditate only when my duties are completed. It's like saying that I'm going to take a dip in the ocean when the waves in that will subside. Waves in the ocean will subside, which will never happen. So just find time to meditate. Muni Gachati. Once you meditate on any of these rupas, from Ishtarupa Devta or Vishwarupa or Arupa, the sadhaka merges into Shiva. The meditator becomes one with Brahman, the source of all beings, witness of all, and which is beyond Maya. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you, Apeksha, for a very nice and a clear explanation of this verse. With this, we conclude one form of meditation, but the kind of, yes, remember all the time we are still in the presence of Lord Brahma. And Brahma is, in the last class, we continued with so many words. The words of Kaivalya should be remembered, like what is Virajam, Vishuddham, Vishokam, Vichintyam. Vichintyam means from now on, start meditating. Start meditating on what? The word used is achintya. How do you meditate on that which has no form at all? There are a lot of masters who tell students, Atma Chintan Karo, Atma Chintan Karo. And you will say, Atma has no form. How do I meditate? So I need to meditate on that. So as long as I don't keep any objects which are with any form, that is a form of Atma meditation. So there are a variety of words which we need to remember. This is part of the Upanishad. We continue to the next verse where I will request Radha to explain. Radha.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sa Brahma sa Shivaha, sa Brahma sa Shivasendraha, Sokshara Paramaswarat, sa Eva Vishnu sa Pranaha, sa Kalogni sa Chandrama. Now, the Absolute Lord, the Brahman, is manifesting here as the Brahma. Here, the Brahman that we talk about, the Absolute Lord, we always refer it as Brahman. But when he does the functions of the Trinity, that is the creation, sustenance, and the absorption, there comes another Brahma. This Brahma has got a longer A, Brahma. So let's not get confused with the Brahman that we refer to as the Absolute God. This Absolute Lord himself is the Brahma, the creator, and is also the Shiva, the one who absorbs everything at the end of the Yuga or the intermediate pralayas that take place. And he is also the Indra. First, we talked about the, from the point of view of functionality of the three functions that the Brahma is performing here. Now we are talking about different dimensions. Indra is the king of heavens. Indra is the king of gods. And he's also the deity for the thunderstorms, for the lightning, for the rivers, and for the flow of the rivers, for the wars, warriors, and so many things. Here, the dimensional aspect is being brought about. And what we have to understand is the principle behind the functionality and the dimensions of different dimensions of existence and different things in different dimensions of existence. The underlying principle is the Absolute Lord himself. And so Akshara, Sa Akshara, he is the Akshara. What is Akshara means? Akshara means the imperishable one. In Sanskrit alphabets, the first alphabet is the A, ending with the last alphabet Ksha. So it becomes Aksharam, which means imperishable. This whole universe of names and forms that we see around us is supposed to have manifested from this Aksharas itself. And the underlying energy or the principle behind these Aksharas is the Brahman. Paramaswarat. Parama is the supreme. Swarat is the ultimate king. Here, the Brahman, the Absolute Lord, is being referred as the Swayam Jyotiswarupa. Sa Eva means he alone. Vishnu, we have already seen the Trinity principle. Vishnu is all pervading, and he is the Lord for sustaining life on this and on this earth and everywhere in the universe. So Pranaha. Prana is a life force energy. The breath symbolizes this life on this earth. Any jiva who stops breathing, the life stops manifesting in that jiva. So the life-giving principle behind every jiva on this planet, the principle behind is the Brahman. Now, absolute life principle, which manifests as the prana, and everything that is alive is because of this one principle. Sakala Agni. Kala and Agni. Kala is a time principle, and time symbolizes everything that has ever been created in the past, present, and future. And Agni represents the fire principle, represents the very act of creation. So Chandrama, this Brahman, this absolute principle, is also the Chandrama. Now here the Chandra or the moon symbolizes the mind. And what is mind? Thoughts. So the absolute thinking principle behind the mind is the Brahman. So what are we talking actually in this verse? We are saying that is Brahman, this is Brahman, that is Brahman. Well, in Advaita, the whole creation and the creator, there is no difference at all. The whole of Advaita teaching is based on this principle. Now, whether it is from the standpoint of functionality or about the dimensions, various dimensions we are talking about in the universe, or the things in that dimensions, or the very life principle itself, or the created or the manifested things, or the very act of creation, and the absolute thinking principle, what we call as the mind, and all this is the absolute Brahman, and he is the ultimate king and Swayam Jyoti Swarupa. All these are the manifestations, whether we talk about the Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara, or Indra, or the various lokas, or the life principle, whatever we talk about, are the manifestations of the supreme Brahman alone. Because an Advaita student is always taught to see the Brahman principle behind everything that is manifested in this world as name and form. Thank you so much. Hari Om.
Thank you, Radha. There's nothing more that I can add to it, but I want you to come to the same visualization. In this thought that we have of Advaita Vedanta, the created and the creation are one and the same. And Lord Brahma is declaring to all of us that you are me. You are Brahma, you are Vishnu, you are Shiva, you are Agni, you are everything. Now, learn to trust that we are not ordinary just because I'm functioning through a limited body-mind complex. So the declaration is all the devatas are not apart from me. In many of the puja, sometimes you do, like in Sri Rudram, before you do, you invoke the devatas on different parts of the body. And now here Brahma is saying, you are already that. Those who are familiar with the Narayana Suktam, you will see the first two lines are part of the Narayana Suktam itself. We go to the verse number 9, which I will ask Aruna, who has already spoken to us before. Aruna, if you can please explain this verse to us.
Hari Om. This is the 9th verse of the Kaivalya Upanishad. Saha eva sarvam yad bhutam yaccha bhavya sanatanam jnatva tam mrityumatyeti nanyah pantha vimukte. So this verse is explaining kind of the nature of self-knowledge. The previous verses have said Nirguna Brahma is absolute and changeless. That alone is the reality. And here is the crux of this beautiful teaching. Aham Brahmasmi, or that reality you are. So this is a concept which is absolutely stunning and mind-boggling. And here in this verse, the first line is a description of Brahman. Saha eva sarvam. Brahma appears as everything that is empirical. Saha eva. The Nirguna Brahma, the Ekatma, is sarvam. It is everything. Yad bhutam yaccha bhavyam. Brahman is everything that existed in the past as well as what will exist in the future. And the term yatcha includes the present as well, Vartaman. So Brahman is Sanatanam. Brahman is eternal. There is no question of beginning or end. It is infinite. Now Swami Anubhavananda has described the Brahman as the eternal, ultimate and only reality on which time has been superimposed as a concept. Swamiji says that time is a creation. Brahman is the substratum of everything, absolutely everything. So the popular example in Vedanta of the clay and the pot is relevant here. The clay is the substratum from which comes the pot and the bowl or whatever is created. And when these break or are destroyed, everything goes back to being clay. So Swami Anubhavananda says, the truth is I. Brahman is the only reality. Like you take a person who is a child, who becomes a teenager, and the teenager gives way to being an adult, a young adult, a middle-aged adult, and then finally an old one. But as yet as when one phase gives way to another, the body cells change completely. That's what all the doctors say. So, but the I remains. So that is like similar to the reality. The next line is Yatva tu mrityu atyeti. Therefore, self-knowledge or the knowledge of Aham Brahmasmi or I am Brahman is the only way to conquer the tyranny of Kala and Mrityu, death. Kala is time. Mrityu, death is Kala in a way. Swami Paramarthananda says, the time principle shoots down everyone. Everything is a victim of this Kala. As long as we identify ourselves with the anatma or the temporary illusion, Swamiji says, we are subject to the forces of karma and kala. So Swami Paramarthananda says there are 5 types of anatma or aspects of illusions that which most people identify with. The first anxiety is to do with the career. The second is related to our possessions. The third related to family members and their welfare. The fourth is prarabdha. Our own body is subject to prarabdha, and our mind, fifth. Perhaps the mind is the only thing that we can somewhat control. We can control it by changing our attitude. But even this cannot be a total control, as even the mind is influenced by old age and time. So we have limited control over the pancha anatma, in other words. Kala or time and karma are the most powerful and disturbing entities that no one can stop. The only way to minimize their impact is to understand that they are mithya, illusion. Therefore, give it less and less importance. That doesn't mean that we behave in a foolish manner or irresponsibly, but we should accept things as they are with the least amount of judgment. So how do you deal with this concept of illusion and reality? Swami Paramarthananda says, let ahankara go, remembering that I am not the ahankara or the reduced identity. Slowly but surely reduce the identification with the body and the world and the external world. And only by this process can we reach self-knowledge, which is moksha or liberation, and thus cross over the tyranny of time and death. Na anyaha pantha vimuktaye. There is no other method of crossing or transcending time and death other than the path of self-knowledge or jnana, which gives us total liberation. Bhakti at its highest level is also aham brahmasmi, which is jnana. Anything other than this will not lead you to moksha or to liberation. Karma and other methods of upasana will lead you to jnana or to the path of self-knowledge, but cannot take you there directly to moksha. Therefore, the shortest and best method is self-inquiry, or who am I, which is what Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi has often preached and said. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna. Another very nice explanation of a very beautiful verse, which goes like this. I'll repeat again. Sa eva sarvam yad bhutam yadcha bhavyam sanatanam. You will recollect, it is also in the Purusha Suktam. Remember again, Brahmaji is telling you, you are Brahma, you are Vishnu, you are Agni, you are Kala. When? All the time. You were, you will be, and it is not something that comes only during some experience during a class, but remember, you are this for all the time, at all periods of time, and therefore there is no death for such a person. As a body, the body goes back to the elements. As the Sukshma Sharira travels from one body to another, so even there is no death for that. And as far as the Atma you are concerned, you have been there from the very beginning, you will be there till the very end. So there is no sense of death. So it is this understanding that gives you, that takes you beyond death, that gives you a sense of eternity. And finally, he gives a very strong word. He says, Na anya panta vimuktaye. There is no other way. Brahmaji is saying other than to visualize that you are that and to anchor in that. So we have to learn to slowly learn to accept our true nature and function as far as transaction is concerned with our limited body mind complex. We have another beautiful verse which I'll request Dr. Kiran. Kiran, a senior consultant neurosurgeon working with us. Dr. Kiran, can you explain this?
Thank you. Guru Bhyo Namaha. This verse talks about the vision of an enlightened person. What is his perspective, how he looks at the world. It also gives us some reference that where we stand in the spiritual ladder. The verse goes like this. Sarva bhutasta atmanam, sarva bhutani cha atmani, sampashyan brahma, paramam yati na anyena hetuna. So, next slide. Shifting from small me, that is, when we look out of the window of a aircraft, we will know how small we are. It also gives us an opportunity that when we move out of this tiny being, we have an opportunity to look at the vast, expansive whole universe. So, infinite are the names and forms of the God. In fact, in reality, all the names and forms are is, and he has no name, no forms, is infinite. Sarva bhutastaman atmanam. Atma is present as inherent principle in every being, like a thread in a pearl necklace, that is Sutra Maniganena, or it is called as Antaryami Tattvam. We should contemplate on this little bit. Initially, we contemplated God as a single person, like Shiva, Jesus, or anybody. Next, we moved on the person as everybody, as Virat, that is whole universe or the whole creation. And next, we slowly move to the invisible thing behind it, that is the blank slate. Now, we are slowly moving to the cause, the ultimate cause of the whole creation. So, Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani. Atma is one indivisible, all pervading substratum which supports the entire universe and beyond. That is, it is the Adhara Tattvam of the entire thing. So, example, if I want to give, it is like we have to meditate upon space. The space is not something in which we, in between two things. Room is a beautiful word which means space. Because there is space, the room has come into being. Or because there is a space, we can create everything. Imagine if the whole universe was on big iron, solid iron, then nothing of the creation would have happened. So, in fact, consciousness is in and through and beyond everything, or as Swamiji puts it, it is immanent and transcendental. Next, knowing Brahman is the only way, and there is no other means other than dropping me. That is Paramam eti. That means it's a beautiful word, Brahmavit apnoti param. So here, this is different from, like, say, we learn mathematics or calculus, where we can we forget and say sometime high. It is like you have learned how to walk. You won't forget it. You don't need any manual now to know how to walk. So here, in spirituality, if you know something, that means you are that. There is no other thing. And this separation between you and the God is a notional. It is not a real. If it was real, then you need to do some karma or action. Like, for example, if there is an empty site, you have to build a house, you have to make action. It is not like that. Example, Karna was a Kshatriya, but he didn't know it. So just as soon as Kunti revealed it, then he did not have to do any work to say that he is the Kshatriya. And because ignorance is the cause, knowledge is the only thing, and there's no other means. This is what, whenever we light a lamp or deepa, we should always remind ourselves that we must attain moksha or real freedom right in this world. So, as we see, as we saw, God is a silence on which all the sounds are created, and He is the song, He is the singer. And what song you want to create? He is the canvas on which all the painting is done. He is the paint, and my friends, what paint you want to create of Him. So here, from these verses, we move a giant leap from the divinization of the world to reveal Brahman as self, that is divinization of I. That is, it will culminate in a great Mahavakya, my Eva Sakala Jatam. It is one of my favorite one. I don't want to, give an anticlimax to that. So to put it everything in a nutshell, The Kaivalya means there is no moksha for me or no freedom. Only if I go, there will be freedom. So either I exist or God exists. So the choice is ours, friends. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kiran, for a nice explanation of another beautiful verse. This is nicely explained again in the Bhagavad Gita in 2 chapters. The first chapter is called Vibhuti Yoga. In Vibhuti Yoga, what do? We try to see God in the universe. And in Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana, what do? You see the whole world as God. What this verse, Brahmaji, is trying to say is see 2 things. First is to see yourself in everybody. When you see everyone else, are you able to identify yourself in them? Are you able to see them in you? So this is a two method of seeing that you are all. You include everybody. And when I include everyone, there is no fear, there is no desire, there is no anxiety, because everyone that I see and experience are an extension of me. And this is the Vedantic wisdom. Now, how to get this message inside our head? Is there some method of churning it? So we'll have to do some form of a actual neurosurgical procedure to get this message into our head. Dr. Vasumati, can you tell us about this word, how to get this message inside?
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Atmanam aranim krutva pranavam cha uttararanim jnana nirmatanam abhyasat pasham dahati panditaha. By making the individual eye sense as the lower sacrificial block of wood and Brahman as the upper block of wood, and repeatedly churning by the rod of contemplative inquiry, the wise burns all bondage as a result of knowledge by the churning. This is the essence of this verse. In this mantra, Shravanam is likened to the process of kindling the fire of performing a yaga. The fire for a Vedic ritual cannot be kindled in any manner or brought from any other place. As you see in this picture, that's the Arani picture, where we have 2 blocks of wood. You know, the lower block of wood is called as Adho Arani, made from Ashwatha Vruksham, and the top wood, which is a rod which is inserted in the pit that contained in the Adho Arani, is the Uttara Arani, made from Shami Vruksha. When we turn the upper wood into the lower one, inserting it with the help of a rope, sparks are produced, and this spark is converted into fire and transferred by means of dried grass or cotton into the Homakunda. This is the simple process of Arani Manthanam. So here, the 2 logs of wood, when we look at the way this has been compared here in this verse, Atmanam Aranim Krutva. The Upanishad says the lower Arani is the qualified, steady, and focused mind of the student. Just as the lower Arani does not move, the student's mind should be unwavering, endowed with Chitta Shuddhi. Pranavam cha Uttararanim. Pranavam means Omkara mantra. Akara of Omkara is equated to Vishwa, that is Jagrata Avastha. Ukara is equated to Taijasa, Swapna Avastha. And Makara is equated to Prajna, Sushruti Avastha. This Omkara mantra can serve as a churning rod. We can also use the Mahavakya mantras for Vicharaha. Thus, Pranavam here refers to an Omkara mantra or a Mahavakya or an appropriate Upanishad mantra. In short, the Upanishad mantras serve as a churning rod. Who does the churning? It is done by the Guru with active cooperation of the Shishya who has an available mind. Jnana Nirmatanam Abhyasat. Nirmatanam means churning. In the Vedantic context, it means enquiry, because in enquiry, we churn our mind. This consists of analyzing the Mahavakya, separating the literal meaning, that is the Vachyartha, from the intended meaning, that is the Lakshyartha. This is a very long process, and this process of Mahavakya Vichara must be repeated, Abhyasaha, to kindle the fire of knowledge. Shravanam can only kindle a feeble fire. One has to then gently fan and then nourish this fire. If Vedantic knowledge is feeble, even a small family problem would put away the fire, and we'll be moving away from our spiritual strictures. Therefore, the feeble flame should be nourished into a huge conflagration. To do this, Shravanam must be followed by Mananam, and Mananam should be followed by Nididhyasanam, which is a crucial process by which we change our mindset. Without this change in mindset, it becomes, the Vedantic study becomes incomplete and ineffective. In Shravanam, Guru plays a very prominent role, and in Mananam, he has a limited role. However, Nididhyasanam is the responsibility of the Shishya alone. When all the three sadhanas are complete, the spark of knowledge is converted into a huge conflagration of fire of knowledge. The benefits of such a knowledge results in Panditaha, the Shishya who is established in this knowledge, Gnana Nishta, Pasham Dahati. It destroys all the oblation materials that are offered, Swaha. The oblations in Vedantic context are Avidya, ignorance, Ahankara, I-ness, Mamakara, minus, Makartutvam, doership, Bhoktrutvam, enjoyership, and the triangular format of Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. All these things together are called Pashaha, or shackles, or bondage. This is nothing but samsara. The enlightened disciple burns all these shackles, Dahati, in the fire of knowledge. Self-knowledge is often compared to fire in our scriptures. Fire has twofold power. Daha Shakti, the power to destroy, and Prakasha Shakti, ability to remove darkness by its light. Brahma Vidya also has these two powers. Daha Shakti, the power to burn samsara, and Prakasha Shakti, the light to uncover the darkness of ignorance, to reveal Brahman. Thus, the revealing and destroying aspects of Brahma Vidya is discussed in this verse through the metaphor of fire for yaga. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Vasumati. A very nice and a clear explanation. Dr. Vasumati is a PhD from the Indian Institute of Science, worked with the Silk Board for many years, a very ardent student of Vedanta, and was given us a very nice explanation. But again, I want you to go back to the picture. You are sitting in front of Brahmaji. Brahmaji is trying to give us this essential wisdom. And probably he's seeing that it is not entering our skulls. So he has to devise some method for us to penetrate our skull. When I saw all those pictures, I was reminded of those early days of neurosurgery, when we had to devise some mechanical drills really to open up into the skull. Now today we have very fine tools which we don't use, but Brahmaji is using some technique to kindle that spark. And how can the spark be kindled? There is no mantra more powerful than Omkara. Omkara is a powerful mantra, one of the most powerful mantras in itself, but Omkara represents all the Upanishads. So essentially, we need to churn our mind. Our mind has to be very steady, and the mind is to be churned using the Omkara, and this will kindle a spark. And it is this spark which will burn the fire of self-knowledge. And when the self-knowledge fire is burned, there are a lot of pashas. Pashas, according to Tantra, Grinna, Lajja, Bhaya, Shanka, Jigupsa, Kula, Jati, Shila. This is the Tantra. All these are related to the body. Whenever we have body identification, we have various pashas. Pashas are like a noose which limits us. But once this process is done, it is said we are free from all the pashas. Now, with that, we go to a shift. The whole meditation now undergoes a different shift altogether, where now Brahmaji is trying to say, although you are like me, you are Parabrahma, Paramatma, why is that all of us feel we are so limited? Why we suffer in this world? What is the diagnosis for all the problems? I will request Shivakumar to explain this verse. Shivakumar is a very successful business person, a very ardent student of Vedanta, and who was involved in taking us, organizing a lot of spiritual retreats, including to Kailash Manasarovar. Shiv, can you explain this verse to us?
Gurubhyo Namaha. The 12th mantra goes like this: Sa eva mayapari mohitatma shariramastaya karoti sarvam stri annapanadi vichitra bhogai sa eva jagrat paritriptimeti. As we can see, the first slide is basically to remind us of the popular example in Vedanta, the power of Avarana Shakti and Vikshepa Shakti. Mantra 12 through 22 are essence and consist of Mahavakyams. In Vedanta, this creation is often compared to a dream because of several similarities between Swapna Prapancha and Jagrat Prapancha. Though there are differences, we shall be discussing only similarities to understand the Mithyatvam of Jagrat Prapancha. The next slide depicts this aspect, and under the Nitya Shakti in Swapna Avastha, activating Vikshepa Shakti, I project a dream based on my mental vasanas. Even though I am the creator of my dream, due to Nidra Shakti, I become the created instead of being the creator. Nidra Shakti conceals the unreal Mithyatvam of the dream, leading me to believe the unreal dream world as real. Due to another power of the same Nidra called Avarana Shakti, I attribute reality to the unreal. As a result, Mithya becomes Satyam, concealing the fact that there is no dream world and leading me to believe that I am confronting an external world. I realize this error in understanding only upon waking up from my Nidra. The only solution to the problems of dream world is to wake up. When I wake up from the dream, my Vikshepa Shakti and Avarana Shaktis disappear. Now, Vedanta says that Jagrat Prapancha is similar to a dream. We can see in the next slide. Like Alpanidra, which creates the Swapna Prapancha, we have Mahanidra, which is commonly known as Maya. And this Maya is responsible for the creation of Jagrat Prapancha. Vedanta compares Jagrat Prapancha to a form of Swapna because of similarities. I, as Brahman, am free from samsara, but under the spell of Maya, Mahanidra, Mahavikshepa Shakti gets activated and projects the Jagrat Prapancha. In this Mahaswapna, I enter this Jagrat Prapancha, activate Avarana Shakti. The Avarana Shakti conceals the fact that I am the creator and identifies as the created, identifies with this body. Instead of using the body as a upadhi or instrument, I become the body. Then the Avarana Shakti conceals the fact that I am the creator of the Mahaswapna, and this leads to mistaking Jagrat Prapancha as real. Misunderstanding Mahaswapna as real, I give it the capacity to burden me with samsara. The solution to this problem is again to wake up, but to Gnana. Swami Paramatmananda's quote explains this beautifully as seen in the next slide. Gnana is waking up from one order of reality to another. That is, shifting the order of reality. When Atma manifests in our body, an inferior medium, it is Jivatma. When the very same Atma is reflecting through a superior medium, then it gets the status of Paramatma. Consciousness is neither inferior nor superior. Instead of identifying with the inferior medium, we must identify with the original consciousness and identify with consciousness as myself. As a Jivatma, I struggle in the samsara without realizing I am original consciousness. Hence, Swami Paramatmananda advises us not to be identified with the reflected consciousness, but to be the original consciousness. Coming to the verse, as in the next slide, Sa Evatma, I am none other than Paramatma, Maya Parimohitaha, under the spell of Mahanidra called Maya, Shariram Asthaya, error of identifying with this Upadhi, the physical body, created by me and ending up as Jivatma. Sarvam Karoti, I do all actions as Jivatma forgetting that I am Paramatma and only in I am only in Mahaswapna. Stri Annapanadi Vichitra Bhogai. Stri means wife. Identifying with the body, establishing relationships, becoming a bhogai, going through sukha and dukkha, forgetting that I am only in Mahaswapna. From study of scriptures, the moment I realize that this as swapna, it is no longer a burden. Continuing in the next slide. Sa eva, Jivatma is Paramatma. Jagrat Paritriptimeti goes through the enjoyment, tripti in Jagrat Avastha or Jagrat Prapancha. This is the first Avastha and called Mahaswapna. Remaining in Mahaswapna, the Jivatma creates another Swapna, a dream within a dream. This is described in the next mantra. Hari Om.
Thank you. Thank you, Shiv Kumar. That was a very nice explanation of a mantra. Until now, it was very nice that you are Brahman. But then we need to know, why am I suffering this? Just like when you fall asleep and have a dream, although I create the dream, I create a dream world, I create a dream body, I am the creator of my dream, but because of what is called a Nidra Shakti, which prevents me from knowing I am the creator of my dream, I enjoy or I suffer my dream. And all Vedanta says exactly like that. When you wake up from a dream, you realize the dream problems and the dream events have disappeared. So too, our whole spiritual process is to wake up from this level of reality to a higher level of reality, as was so beautifully described. With that, we have finished the set of 6 verses for today, and I will quickly introduce the set of verses that are going to come for the next class. Now, once the teacher has given us a diagnosis, he will tell us that we will go from one level to another, from one body to another. This is called the world of Tripura. In our tradition, the Upanishad had to be memorized. We need to memorize. That means you are a walking Upanishad. Wherever you go, the verses of the Upanishad are there in your head. And therefore, you have the ability to bring it wherever you are. Now, I will request Radha to chant a few verses of this Upanishad, so you get a taste of how the Upanishad has to be remembered and to be chanted. All these are extremely beautiful verses where you have what are called a string of Mahavakyas. As I said, this Upanishad, like all Upanishads, tell us our real nature is not ordinary. The real nature is extraordinary. Radha, if you could chant these.
त्रिषु धामसु यद्भोग्यं भोक्ता भोगश्च यद्भवेत् तेभ्यो विलक्षणं साक्षी चिन्मात्रोऽहं सदा शिवः मय्येव सकलं जातं मयि सर्वं प्रतिष्ठितं मयि सर्वं लयं याति तद्ब्रह्माद्वयमस्म्यहम् अनोरणीयानहमेव तद्वन् महानहं विश्वमहं विचित्रं पुरातनोऽहं पुरुषोऽहमीशो हिरण्मयोऽहं शिवरूपमस्मि अपानिपादो अहं चिन्त्यशक्ति पश्याम चक्षुः अहं बीजानामि विवेकरूपो न चास्ति वेत्ता मम चेत् सदाहम् वेदैरनैक्यैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृत्वेद विदेव चाहं न पुण्य पापे मम नास्ति नाश न जन्म देहेन्द्रिय बुद्धिरस्ति न भूमिरापो न च वह्निरस्ति न चानीलो मेस्ति न चाम्बरं च.
Thank you, Radha, for a nice rendering of these verses, which we need to remember by heart. In the old days, the royal kings used to have royal poets, which would make poetry about the king. Now, these are all poetry about ourselves. If you know the meaning, it is only speaking about the glory of ourselves. And that is why we need to know the meaning of these words and need to be able to chant, because it is not speaking about anything else. It is speaking about ourselves. So next week, same time, we will be seeing how when you go through the dream world and through the deep sleep world, these are the tripuras that you live in. What wakes you up in the morning? It is not your alarm clock that wakes you up. It is your karma that has to be exhausted that wakes you up. And so the cycle goes on and on and on. Every day, waking, dream, deep sleep, waking, dream, deep sleep. And then our teacher says, then you pop off. And then again, born again, and then again, waking, dream. And the cycle goes on and on. At some stage, we would like to say, I have had enough. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. Iha samsare bahudustare. Now, if someone has decided, I'm enough, I don't want to go back to another womb again, then Brahma Vidya is the answer. And etasma jayate prana. Now, he's talking about from each one of us comes this whole creation, manaha, indriya. Then comes kam, that is space, vayu, jyoti, apaha, prithvi, vishwasva, adarani. And then from this verse onwards, from the 16th verse, you can see tat tvam eva tat. The teacher is trying to say in so many words, you are that. And some of these verses that you heard are all Mahavakyas. Jagrat, Swapna, Shushupti, Adi. I am not the waker, I am not the sleeper, I am not the dreamer, but I am the witness and I am the supporter of all the three. And from that perspective, we need to see this Upanishad and to be able to understand this Upanishad. Unless we make our homework, the beauty of these Upanishads when people explain to them will not be there. I will sincerely request you that we are now not basic students, we are now advanced students of Vedanta. Spend this week trying to study these 6 verses from whatever sources are available for you so that the next week's class becomes meaningful. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.